Hello, everybody. I'm Melanie, and I'm from Dementia Carers Count, and I'm really happy to welcome to this Thursday's Lunch and Listen Gina Awad, the author of the book United, which was illustrated by Tony Husband, who's also with us today. Welcome to you both, and thank you so much for giving up your time to be with us for this lunchtime session. We're going to look at the book, which I have to say I keep constantly next to me since I've had a copy. And I really would like to know a little bit more about you both, Gina and Tony. And so, Gina, would you like to tell us a bit about your background, and then we'll start looking at how the book came to be?
Yeah. So I founded the Exeter Dementia Action Light about 8 years ago, and that was sort of inspired by me doing a degree in health and social care at the Open University. It was a 6-year degree, and the second module that I chose was dementia care, which I found really, really fascinating. I'm interested in relationships, the human mind, and how we connect and how we be socially, and communicating as well. And I've got a background in counselling. And yeah, I just feel that people living with dementia are very misunderstood and vulnerable, can be vulnerable, and need support, love, care and compassion. So that's a little bit about me, but I don't want to take up the whole thing talking about me. Wow. But just, you know, I'll let Tony sort of say what he wants to say, introduce himself.
Yeah, that's great. Tony, tell us about you.
Yeah, I'm a cartoonist. I've worked for Private Eye, worked for magazines, the Times, all over the world. About 15 years ago, I did a book about my dad's journey through dementia. It was called Take Care, Son. So I sort of entered the dementia world and became very passionate about raising awareness of dementia. And I do a talk on my book, Take Care, Son, a PowerPoint. And that's where I met Gina when I was doing a talk in Exeter for the university there. Oh. And that's Gina was in the audience, and we got chatting afterwards and realised we both had the same passion. So that's when we kind of linked up, and we've done a lot together since.
That's excellent. To everyone that's watching, if you have a question that you'd like me to ask as you think of it as we go through our session today, pop that into the chat underneath this session. Please bear with us because we can't spot everything, but we will answer. And if you want to send a personal message to Dementia Carers Count, we can answer those too if you would rather be anonymous. And we will spend some time at the end answering your questions. So without any further ado, Gina, can you tell us all where your inspiration came from to write United, your book?
Basically, Tony and I met each other in 2015, if I recall, and he went through his book, Take Care, Son, which I found so inspirational. And as I said, we got chatting afterwards when he was doing a book signing, and we sort of felt that there was that mutual passion there, and we'd love to sort of work together. So we made contact a few months later, and I invited Tony back down to Exeter to deliver his presentation for Take Care, Son. And ever since then, we've been working together. We've done sort of murals together and sort of talked to people in care homes, haven't we, Tony? And created a couple of murals in different care homes, including incorporating some of the activities they do and bringing some of their stories and memories to light. And we've done a couple of calendars together. And then during the pandemic, we felt that we really wanted to do something. We didn't know what, but it had to be around dementia. And we were both sort of thinking and reflecting on the fact that, you know, it's really, really, really hard for carers, family members to look after their loved ones. And we'd love to have given, you know, really wanted to give them a platform to share their stories. So we wanted some true stories. So, you know, the inspiration came from, you know, wanting to illustrate how important and how challenging it can be and how complex it can be for families, and not just focus on people with dementia, but look at that. So we're really grateful to be here today, because we're hoping that a lot of people from Dementia Carers Count are going to be listening, and we've got 7 wonderful stories. So it's a bit of a sort of journey to how we got to where we were, but it took probably 18 months to 2 years to bring everything together, which was challenging, but really, really exciting, wasn't it, Tony?
Yeah, it was. And I mean, one of my goals, well, both our goals was how important carers are and how undersung they are, really. You know, people just expect them to do it. The government expects them to do it. But these are the people we met through various contacts were the most amazing people, the most loving people. And to sit here, well, we had to do it in lockdown, and so we did it on Zoom because there was no meeting up. So I just sat here in Manchester, listening to Gina talking to these wonderful people. And sometimes the person they were caring for joined the meeting, and it was just a beautiful, some emotional moments with people. And I just sat here drawing and taking notes of what Gina was getting out from everybody. And we found out that people, whilst were a bit lost as well, they didn't know everything they should know. I know Gina was able to guide people to places that they didn't even know about. So it was a fabulous journey with fabulous people, and just Gina's got this ability to just talk, and people, you know, just trust her. So it was just a lovely process, and very, very humbling as well for me, and I know Gina.
That's really interesting, because what really comes across is how light it is to read. I was first sent the book in preparation for meeting you both, and I remember thinking, gosh, how am I going to find time for this? I'd got a couple of other things on, but it is a really light, sensitive read. And I'm just wondering, how is this, what if you put Gina and Tony's two stars together, is this what comes out? Because it's you've kind of brought some joy to some very tricky situations that people find themselves in, and I was just, and that makes a complete contrast to how sometimes dementia and families are portrayed. And I just wondered how you got to this unique style, because I think once people can see that, they know that it's a book you can dip into and you can find something for the day. And you know, sometimes I leave the book open on a particular page that's resonated with me on that day, and I might just look at that page all day, actually. But I'd really like to know, you know, how you reach this tone that feels so appropriate for everybody. It feels quite inclusive.
I think that's a really, really good question, because it certainly didn't just arrive like this.
No.
It took a lot of planning. I would sit with, say, for example, a family or a loved one on Zoom, maybe with their loved one in the background, and I just ask questions, lots of different questions, quite thought-provoking questions, which helped people really reflect. And I think they felt that safe space to reflect. Tony would quietly sit in the background and sort of make some notes and things like that. And then what we would do is because we would glean obviously a lot of information in those Zoom conversations. And then Tony would go away and sort of create some illustrations in pencil, rough. And then I would look at that, and we would look at the themes that we wanted to get across, because it was really important we got the nuggets of gold, if you like, in that, and brought that through. And then when we sort of created or got the information for each story, we then went back to the family and said, you know, this is what we've got. What do you think? And there was an opportunity there for people to look at the narrative, because I think what's really important is we needed to really edit down that narrative, but still convey those messages and those nuggets of learning. And I think that is quite skillful to do. And that's, you know, a lot of that is around Tony and the way he can really capture those moments and those emotions. And I think together we work really well together, didn't we, Tony? Or we do work well together.
Absolutely, you know, and my style is very simple style. You know, a few lines can, you know, project an image of sadness, happiness, just with a couple of lines. But what I think the lightness of the book also came from the carers, because they were so full of love and joy and sadness. And some of the stories, you just thought, we've got to just tell this as it is, with stripped down, and just make it sort of, it's easy for people to understand, and it's not scary. It's some of the moments they shared, you know, like one family having making a little cinema where they could watch films of especially the Harry Potter films. So they'd create a cinema thing, and you know, we were kind of led by their stories, and they made it easy for us to think, oh, this is how, and we do work well together. we have worked well together. We connect on what's important.
I think that's important, wasn't it? What you're saying, Tony, you know, we would connect on what's important. So we would look at the content that we were given, the narrative, and then we would sort of capture that in a way. It's hard to define and explain it, but I'm aware with the people that I meet that live with dementia in the families, things that are really important, also other people that learning. So I really wanted to make this our book accessible. And you said how it is easily accessible. It's not full of jargon. It's literally full of heart. And what I try and get across, and I don't want to diminish it, but it is a short read. You know, you could read it in an hour, but you can also, as some people have said, you know, they'll read one story and reflect on that. But we call it the Little Big Book, and I think that's really nice.
That really comes across to me. I mean, I'm looking now at one of the stories that I really like, and there's just this moment, and it's just that there's Tony's illustration with someone just with their hand on the back of the person they're supporting, and you can almost feel that they want to connect with them, but they're frustrated, and the words tell us about that frustration, which is what we hear from the dementia carers count all the time, which is, see, here's something else we weren't told about, because everyone's journey is unique and the things that come up for people. And I think for me, how did you choose the families? Because all of the stories, they've got elements that resonate with us, but they're all very different stories because every carer and every person with dementia is unique.
I think one of the responses to that is some of the issues that would come through from the different families would be similar, but I didn't want to duplicate. I mean, yes, they do sort of follow through, but I think sometimes I think, right, okay, well, we've used that in another story. Let's look at this. So it was really, really important for Tony and I to get across diversity, you know, different cultures, different, you know, we've got a lovely couple of ladies together who you know, wanted to get back to Gran Canaria, and then when we got all the stories together, I said to Tony, and I thought, oh, what's he going to say? I said, and also to Andrew, the editor at Little Brown, I said, is there room for one more, please? Oh. Because what I did is I looked at all the family stories that we had, and then I thought, oh, it would be nice to sort of cover a few issues that weren't in there that are important. But going back to how we got the families, we reached out, because we both well connected, and we reached out to lots of different people and just explained what we were looking for, explained that it would be a voluntary situation, and that, you know, we would spend a bit of time with them and they would be sort of very much involved along the way. And they were, and people were really amenable, which was brilliant.
Yeah, I think
illustrations there, Melanie, that you could show.
And I think in relation to that, I think we're going to be looking at Maya and Mira's story, which was, you know, that will come up. But it's a lady that's mother lived away from her geographically, and how that was challenging. Which is obviously, I'm so sure some of your carers and families will relate to that, and how you know, she moved back and how that was with that transition and things like that. So I think Rob behind the scenes is going to bring that up, which we'll see in a minute. But one of the things I wanted to pick up on, Melanie, and I know it was really important, it's really important for me to share this, even though I share it in the book, is the term carer.
Yes.
We know that people don't like the term carer, and we understand that, but we also know without getting that, you know, that diagnosis for the person with dementia, that the family members will not get the support. So I really wanted to acknowledge that whilst we use the term carer throughout the book, we first and foremost know that that person is a loved one, they're a husband, they're a wife, they're a friend, they're a mother, they're a grandmother. So please, anyone that's listening, don't think that we're pigeonholing you into this word, this term carer, but that's the reason why that we do use it. And I'm sure you relate to that, and you hear that all the time, Melanie.
We do. I think people really want the maintenance of that relationship of being first and foremost that familiar relationship or the partnership is so important to people. But like you, we have to reach out. Our name is Dementia Carers Count because we're trying to reach out to a group of people, and that sense of unity links to your title of your book, and how did you choose the title of United? Because we're not all the same, and you've got that real breadth of different types of people, different types of family. We all know that, you know, in our own homes we all have different ways of doing things, but that United feels very strong. How did you come to the title?
It does. I mean, Tony can sort of elaborate on that in a minute, but it was originally, Tony, going to be together, wasn't it? Do you remember when we looked at it?
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Tony?
I mean, for me, United was the families or the relationships, but then it was all of us around the country who are carers, who have been carers, and we are all united on the same journey. And also to know that we're not alone, that there are a lot of us out there who have been our carers. So that was the United thought, that we're a team. It's like a football team. We carers united, but we carers with the person we're caring for, the loved one, you know, who lives with dementia. And it don't always come across your caring, because that person is part of the life as well, you know. So it's not like, oh, do this, do that, do that. It's a free, open thing, a form of caring where you all share. So that was, to me, the United was the perfect title. And then we had the subtitle underneath, which, you know, explains what, because then people might thought, oh, it's about Manchester United, we'll buy it. And then we'd have sold millions.
Yeah, so we had some debates on that, but originally it was going to be together. We wanted something that felt a bit more together, and United was the perfect fit. So that was really important.
I think that, but also that original United and the whole football connection isn't a bad thing, because quite often some groups, which can include men, feel quite isolated in their caring role.
Well, in the book we've got Nobby Styles. Yes. And his lad John, and also one of the families of a mum, daughter looking after Steve, caring for Steve, caring for the dad.
Yes.
She played
Thomas,
She played for Crewe Alexander. They were big Man United supporters. So I managed to get them a couple of United replica kits and sent them so they could watch the match together. So it was, you know, so football was a theme through it.
Yeah, you know. I like that.
Yeah, it was.
Just for anybody watching, we do have an introductory session from Dementia Carers Count coming up that looks at all the different factors that can affect a person's experience of dementia and how that can affect the role as a carer. And that's actually this coming up on Friday, the 16th of September. And we'll pop a link again under here so that you can find that if that's something you'd like to come along to. The sessions are friendly. They're run by our professionals who are all health professionals. And you can talk as much or as little as you want. We appreciate, you know, it's lovely to see faces like you're looking at us now, but if you want to have your camera off and attend and just find out a bit more about us quietly, then you're really welcome. But also bring any questions that you have, and do put any questions around that session or any of the topics that are coming up for you into the chat, because we'll be keeping an eye out for those questions as we go along.
Can I just ask, Melanie, I wondered,
yes.
Are we able to get the images up, or is there a bit of a tech issue there? I was hoping to get...
I think Rob's putting the images up. Maybe he'll, we've got Rob working in the background, everybody, pulling this all together. He'll tell us what images he's put up so that we can perhaps talk about them a bit more.
Okay, yeah. I'm just thinking, I've got the book in front of me and I've got a couple of images, and it's just nice for people to actually see and make sense. I mean, it might be some of the people that have, they'll be live on the video for people to see. So that's great. So I don't know what.
Well, I mean, by all means, refer to them. You know, if we hold our books in exactly the right place, you're welcome to point at what you'd like to talk about, because you know, we've got different cultures and, as you said, different lifestyles and very different people. But if you'd just like to point in the book or say what page it is,
it's because I've got a blurry background. It's not.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, this is at this second.
This is Mira's story. And they're having a little dance and a bit of a boogie woogie. And it says underneath, the physical distance was difficult between Maya and her mum. So Mira moved in with the family. And then you've got, let's see if you can see that. can you see that one there?
I can see the left-hand page really clearly. And
Yeah,
then
so
the right-hand page
yeah,
with some-
that's the page one. So they're in India there, and Mia is saying, where are we? Why are we here? And then she's put in it, says underneath, on a trip to India, my sister noticed a difference in Mum. She was confused, disorientated, and very forgetful. And one of the things that we were very aware of, and I don't know if people know about this, but when with a native language, and sometimes people that have a second language, they sometimes with dementia they can go back to their native language and forget their second language, and that actually happens in this story, which people will see. And then things like getting dressed, she wasn't able to put her sari on, which was really sad, because I know you particularly like this story, didn't you, Melanie?
I did. This is the one that keeps falling open on some of these pages, and it is, I think it encapsulates that mother-daughter relationship very, very strongly for me.
Yeah. And the other thing
that thing with the sari, one of the first signs with my dad, he always wore a tie, but he couldn't tie the knot, and that's one of the first signs with my dad. So it's a very similar thing, so little things like that with the other signs.
Yeah, our team are available to answer questions about getting dressed, and some, we've had people that don't change their clothes, do change their clothes, put too many clothes on, and it does seem that it's one of those repeated actions that can cause quite a lot of stress for carers, especially as well where in this instance, and as Tony's just said, where someone's identity is quite tied up with what they're wearing, and it always has been for them themselves and for their families, and so it's quite symbolic to
it's
think
very
around this.
Yeah, it is really symbolic, and we don't realize how important it is until maybe these things arise. So it's about being sensitive. And I think, when we gleaned sort of information from our families, it was really important for us to feed, when we shared that draft with them, that it felt like a big pressure, but we also did feel that before we shared it, we really did think about what we were sharing and what would, how the families would receive that. And we got really, really good feedback, even at the first draft, didn't we, Tony?
Yeah. I'm just going back to the clothing. I wrote a poem that became a song, and one of the lines is, "My tie it won't tie, and my laces they won't not." And that was, quite, it moved me when I wrote that, because he couldn't do either. So it was like, my tie it won't tie, and my laces they won't not. And that kind of just part of that process, really.
Yeah, I think that both of those things just bring us back to, you talked about language and language within that story. How did you decide? I mean, you must have had so much you could have included. I suspect there's a box of pages somewhere that you've got stashed away. The stories are short, but there's quite a lot in there, if you see what I mean. How did you decide how long they should be?
Well, we knew roughly we had about 120 pages, but even though we knew that, you still don't think about that. So it's hard to explain, you have to be there. But we sort of created the story, and then once we've got the first one, we kind of knew, right, well, they're all going to need to be a similar sort of length. And they were, and I think because we found it quite easy in some ways to do that.
It's that ability to trim things down to the very essence of the story, not fluff it out. There's no need for pages of words. There's, I've done it all my life as a cartoonist. It's a cartoon with a caption. So it's like that. So you learn, and we work together well to just trim it down to the essentials, to what was important to the story and the essence of their lives. And it just, once you get into that routine of knowing that's what you got to do, then it becomes like a natural process. And I think that's one of the beauties of the book. That
it is, and it's definitely. I mean, the comments that we had about 30 or so pre-publication reviews, because I sent the manuscript out to a number of people, some academics, some professionals, people living with dementia, families, and got some wonderful reviews, which really kind of set the tone. And then since then, we've been involved in different publications, but one of the themes that comes out is for families is that it helps us to feel less alone. And I think that's really special to us. That means a lot.
Yeah, I think that's coming back to that united, raising awareness amongst people. This is accessible, but it's not oversimplified. The complexity of the challenges is in there. And as I say, you different days you read different bits and you get different information out of it. But that awareness, and were you thinking about helping other people to understand, is this something we should give to all of our families? Because sometimes we find that one person takes the caring burden on and the other six.
It's kind of like a reference book as well.
Yeah.
Because you, Melanie, said, you have it open to the page. And I think it's an important book like that for carers to just to be reminded and go and check that page out and say, oh, that happened.
Yeah,
that does happen.
One of the things I know that I wanted us to achieve is that people would read, and everybody, and I'm talking everybody, not just carers or people or whatever. I just feel genuinely it's a book that anyone could read. And if we had loads of money, I would love to be able to gift it to all the memory cafes in the UK, all the charities, anyone that wants to read it. Schools, we're hoping to do some work with a school, Tony, aren't we, locally? And at the back, there are a number of references. And this isn't just a list of references. It's curated references that I've looked at and resources over the last few years, 10 years that I've been working in dementia, that I've curated that I think are really special. You're obviously included in there, Dementia Carers Care, other charities, but also, we've got some blogs, some blogs, lots of different things. So there's really a lot of learning to be gleaned in there, but yeah, it's wonderful. We're really so happy with it, aren't we, Tony?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just echoing what Gina's just said, that list of people that can help you and different organizations that you might not have heard of, especially if you're at the beginning of your being a carer, or a new stage where you don't feel prepared. We provide information as a charity. We're looking more and more at financial issues, the types of assessments that you might need support with, carers' rights and benefits, because some people aren't accessing everything that they could access. And again, we've got a session on the 30th of September, and again, we'll put a link to that, because you've brought so many of these stories to life, and I can see that this time has gone so quickly. We've got about 2 minutes left. I honestly could talk to you. I could talk to you both definitely all day, and maybe there'll be a reason why we need to talk to you again if we can get you to spare the time. But I really wanted to say thank you. I want to say that the book is available online and at Waterstones, and in all good bookstores, and I'm sure any bookstore will order it for you. So it is United, it is in focus, and it's about caring for our loved ones living with dementia, by Gina Awad, and with the illustrations from Tony Husband. And really to encourage people, we have given a few copies away to support this event, because as a charity we agree with you that we feel like everyone should be able to get hold of a copy.
That's so kind, Melanie. Thank you for doing that. That's really kind. We
know as a team how much we've got out of it, and many of us are carers ourselves, and we can really relate to it, and I think everyone will. So hopefully those illustrations will inspire people, and 10 people will be having their message with their names in the chat of this group, because they will have won a copy, which we'll post out to them, and one very lucky person will have a signed copy.
Yay!
Which is just great. And if you think of a question for any of us, we'll do our best to come back to you, even if you think of it after tea or once you've watched this later this evening.
Please do get in touch.
If we're lucky, Gina and Tony can answer those questions as well. What an inspiring book. So big thanks to you both. United is a phenomenal read.
Thank you so much, Melanie, for having us on, and for anyone that's listening in, thank you, and you're all amazing. You really are.
Everyone, thank you for watching. Okay, bye.
Thank you both so much.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.